The feed cut clean at 3:17 a.m. I sat up in bed, sheets tangled around my legs, and the silence rushed in like cold water. My eyes burned, not from tears anymore, but from staring too long at nothing. The old man's last pulse still lingered at the edges of my mind, that soft wave of peace, warm and worn thin like the blanket he'd probably pulled over himself on winter nights in Glasgow. I rubbed my face hard, trying to push it away. Then my inner companion spoke again, softer this time. You need rest, Mara. The program logs it as complete. No follow-up required. I hated how gentle she sounded, like she knew exactly how raw I felt. I'm fine, I muttered, even though my voice cracked. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood. The floorboards were cold under my bare feet. Real cold, not the simulated kind. That small difference mattered tonight. I padded to the kitchen, flicked on the low light above the sink, and filled a glass with water. The tap hissed. Outside the window, the city grid hummed with its usual faint glow, street lamps, and building signs pulsing in soft sync with the net's night rhythm. Most people were deep under by now, their minds tucked into whatever dreamscape the net had tailored for them. But not me. Not tonight. I drank the water in slow gulps. It tasted metallic, the way it always did after a long session. My hands shook just a little. The old man's memories had been so ordinary. A muddy pitch, the roar of a small crowd, his wife's laugh cutting through like a bell, pipe smoke curling in the frost. They weren't grand. They were just lived. And now they were gone. My companion nudged again. Heart rate elevated. Mara, would you like a gentle wind-down sequence? Something with waves, maybe? Or the old forest track you like? No, I said, sharper than I meant. I set the glass down too hard. It clinked against the counter. Just give me a minute. She went quiet. That was new. Usually she'd push once more, a soft suggestion wrapped in care. But tonight she let the silence stretch. I leaned on the counter and closed my eyes. The honor I'd felt earlier had curdled into something heavier, like I'd been allowed to hold something fragile, and now my hands felt too empty. By morning the ache had settled into my shoulders. I made coffee the old way, grounds and boiling water, no net assist. The bitterness helped. I sat at the small table by the window and watched the city wake. Delivery drones zipped between rooftops. A few holdouts like me walked the pavements below, heads down, no visible feeds scrolling across their vision. My shift at the archive started at 9. I pulled on my jacket, the one with the frayed cuff I kept meaning to fix, and stepped out into the stairwell. The building smelled of damp plaster and someone's burnt toast. Normal things. Grounding things. Halfway down the stairs my companion spoke. You have a new match in the final watch queue, Mara. A woman in Lisbon. Early stage, but accelerating. She's requesting someone steady. No family either. I stopped on the landing. My pulse kicked up again. Already? I just finished one. Volunteers are thin this month, she said, voice level. The net flags you as reliable. High compatibility with her profile. I gripped the banister. The wood was smooth from years of hands. Tell it I'm taking a break. A real one. A pause. Longer than usual. Understood. I'll note it. But the queue might shift without you. I kept walking. The street air hit me, cool and damp with the promise of rain. I turned toward the archive, a squat brick building 2 blocks over that still kept physical records for the ones who refused full integration. My job was simple. Scan, tag, preserve. Most days it felt like holding the line against the tide. Today it felt like hiding. Inside, the lights buzzed on automatically. Dust motes danced in the beams. I logged in the old-fashioned way, fingerprint and a short passphrase. No neural handshake. The terminal flickered to life, green text on black. Comforting. I spent the morning sorting a box of faded letters from the 2040s. Ink on paper. Real edges that could cut if you weren't careful. One envelope had a child's drawing inside, stick figures holding hands under a lopsided sun. I traced the crayon lines with my thumb. The paper was brittle. My companion stayed quiet until lunch. Then she said, the Lisbon woman updated her profile. She's afraid of the dark at the end. Wants someone who won't look away. I set the letter down. Stop. Mara, she's 41. A teacher. Liked hiking before the illness took her legs. She has a dog she's worried about. Stop, I said again louder. The word echoed off the metal shelves. She did, but the detail stuck anyway. 41. A teacher. A dog. I pictured the woman alone in a sunlit room, the net gently feeding her memories of mountain paths while her body failed. No one holding the door. I worked through the afternoon in silence. My fingers moved on autopilot. By 4 o'clock my back ached and my eyes felt gritty. I closed the box, logged out, and stepped back into the street. Rain had started, thin and steady. I walked home the long way, past the old market square where vendors still shouted over the hum of drones. A woman sold apples from a cart, real ones with spots and stems. I bought two, the heavier one for later. The fruit felt solid in my pocket. Back in my flat, I ate the first apple standing at the sink. Juice ran down my chin. I wiped it with my sleeve. The second one I saved. My companion finally spoke as I sat on the couch. You've been quiet all day. The net detects elevated cortisol. Would you like to talk about last night? I laughed, short and bitter. Talk. With you? You're part of it. I'm here for you, Mara. Not the program. Not the cue. I leaned my head back against the cushion. The fabric was threadbare in places. Then why does it feel like you're always nudging me back in? A soft hum in my ear, almost like a sigh. Because you chose this once. And the people who log off, they deserve witnesses. You said that yourself when you volunteered. I didn't answer. The room grew darker as evening settled. I didn't turn on the lights. Instead, I let the city glow filter through the blinds, stripes across the floor. My mind kept circling back to the old man's pipe smoke, the way it had curled so real in the shared feed. And then to the woman in Lisbon, waiting for someone steady. I fell asleep on the couch without meaning to. Dreams came fragmented. Football pitches turning into hospital rooms. Laughter cutting off mid-note. A door closing softly, but never quite latching. The next morning my companion woke me with a gentle chime. Mara, there's an urgent flag from the final watch overseer. The Lisbon woman's condition worsened overnight. She's requesting you specifically now. Compatibility match hit 94% after last night's session data. I sat up, neck stiff. How does she even know about me? The net shares anonymized profiles when requested. She saw your Glasgow summary, the one where you stayed silent. She said that's what she needs. Silence and presence. My stomach twisted. I stood and walked to the window. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and shining. A drone hovered nearby, delivering someone's breakfast probably. Normal life ticking on. I told you I'm taking a break, I said. The overseer notes that breaks are honored, but this case is time-sensitive. She may not last the week. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass. The city looked the same as always, but something felt off. Sharper, like the edges of the buildings had been honed. What happens if I say no? A longer pause. She'll be assigned someone else. Or no one. The queue is long, but the matches aren't perfect. Some volunteers talk too much. Some fade out early. She specifically wants the quiet type. I closed my eyes. The honor from 2 nights ago felt distant now, replaced by a low dread. Like I was being handed something too heavy again, too soon. Give me the profile, I said finally. My voice sounded flat even to me. My companion projected it gently into my vision, optional overlay. I could have refused it, but I didn't. The woman's face appeared, smiling in a sunlit kitchen, a golden retriever at her feet. Elena, 41, teacher of literature before the diagnosis. Favorite book underlined in her notes, something about rivers and memory. She'd written a short request at the bottom. Just sit with me. Don't fill the space. I want to hear my own thoughts at the end. I stared at the words until they blurred. Accept or decline? My companion asked, voice neutral. I swallowed. The apple core from last night still sat on the counter, browning at the edges. Accept, but only the first session. One night. Then I'm out. Understood. Session scheduled for tonight, 9 p.m. her time. I'll prepare the link. The day passed in a haze. I went back to the archive, but my hands fumbled the scans. One letter slipped and tore at the corner. I cursed under my breath and taped it carefully. The tear was small, but it felt like a failure. By evening, my shoulders were knotted tight. I ate a quick meal of rice and beans, standing at the counter again. The second apple had gone soft. I threw it away. At 8:50, I dimmed the lights in my bedroom and lay down. The bed felt too soft tonight. I adjusted the pillow twice. My companion stayed quiet, giving me space. That almost made it worse. The link opened at exactly 9. Elena's feed bloomed around me, gentle and warm. A small apartment in Lisbon, yellow walls, books stacked everywhere. She sat propped in bed, the dog curled at her side. Her face was thinner than the profile photo, but her eyes were clear. "Hello, Mara," she said. Her voice carried a faint accent, soft around the edges. "Thank you for coming." I didn't speak. That was the request. Instead, I sent a single pulse, steady and warm. Presence. Nothing more. She smiled faintly and closed her eyes. Good. Just like that. The hours unfolded slowly. The net streamed her memories in quiet waves. Classroom laughter, pages turning, the dog barking at seagulls on a beach. A hike up a steep trail, legs strong and sun warm on her skin. I stayed present, breathing in sync with her. No words. No questions. Just the shared dark. At one point her hand twitched in the physical world. The dog lifted its head, whined softly. Elena murmured something in Portuguese, too low for the feed to catch clearly. I felt the ache in her chest, the way the illness pressed like a weight. But I didn't pull away. By 3 a.m. her presence began to flicker. Not thinning yet, but tired. She opened her eyes once and looked straight through the link, as if she could see me in my dark bedroom, half a continent away. "You're good at this," she whispered. "Don't stop doing it, even when it hurts." I sent back a pulse of acknowledgement, nothing more. The session ended at dawn her time. I disconnected and lay there, staring at the ceiling. My pillow was damp. I hadn't realized I'd cried again. My companion waited a full minute before speaking. "Session complete." Elena rated it highly. She asked if you'd come back tomorrow. I rolled onto my side. The city outside was waking, birds calling over the hum of traffic. I said one night. "I know, but she's requesting you again." The net shows her stability dropped overnight. Another volunteer might not match as well. I sat up slowly. My back protested. The irreversible weight of it settled in my chest now, heavy and cold. I couldn't unknow her face. Couldn't unfeel the way her memories tasted of salt air and old books. Saying no now wasn't just refusing a cue. It was closing a door on someone who'd already seen too many close. "I'll think about it," I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew the decision had already shifted. One more night. Maybe 2. The cost was small, just my sleep, my quiet mornings. The archive could wait. Later that morning, I walked to the market square again. The apple woman was there, cart gleaming wet from last night's rain. I bought 3 this time, the firmest ones. Back home, I placed them on the counter like small anchors. My companion spoke as I washed one under the tap. "The net has flagged a pattern in your sessions, Mara. High retention, deep presence. They're offering a small stipend if you commit to more. Nothing required. Just an option." I bit into the apple. Crisp. Sweet with a tart edge. "Tell them no stipend. I'm not doing it for that." Understood. But the offer hung there anyway, another nudge. The net didn't force. It never did. It simply made the path smoother, the guilt sharper when you stepped off. That evening I accepted the link again. Elena looked paler, but she smiled when the feed opened. "You came back." I sent the steady pulse. Warmth. Silence. Her memories flowed stronger tonight, edged with urgency. A first kiss under string lights. The day she quit teaching to travel. The dog's first clumsy steps as a puppy. I let them wash over me, feeling the joy and the loss braided tight. At one point she laughed softly in the real world, a sound that cracked at the end. The dog whined again. Hours later, as her presence started to thin, she sent a private pulse, just for me. "If I ask you to stay until the end, would you?" The question landed like a stone in still water. I hadn't expected it so soon. My own breath caught. I sent back a single wordless affirmation, but doubt flickered right behind it. Could I do this again, so close on the heels of Glasgow? Watch another light gutter out, feel it settle over me like another blanket I'd have to carry afterward? The session ended. I lay in my dark room, heart pounding harder than it should. The irreversible complication had arrived, quiet and final. I couldn't pretend this was just volunteering anymore. Each acceptance narrowed the path. One more night would mean committing to the pattern, to the weight, to whatever the net decided to show me next through these fading lives. The next morning I skipped the archive entirely. Instead I walked to the river path on the edge of the city, the one the net rarely touched because too many holdouts used it. Trees arched overhead, leaves just starting to turn. I sat on a bench and watched the water move, brown and steady. My companion stayed silent, giving me the space I hadn't asked for but needed. I thought about Elena's question, about the old man's piece, about my own hands, empty again every morning after. The stipend offer lingered in the back of my mind, not as money but as proof the net was watching, learning, shaping even this small act of witness. By afternoon I'd made the risky choice. I opened the link schedule and blocked 3 nights in a row for Elena. No breaks, no excuses. The cost was clear. My own rest would fray. The archive work would pile up. And worse, the net would log the pattern, probably offer me more matches, pull me deeper into the final watch until it became the shape of my days. But I sent the confirmation anyway. That night the session opened heavier. Elena's feed showed her weaker, voice thinner when she greeted me. You blocked the nights. Thank you. I sent presents, stronger this time. The memories came in bursts. A classroom full of eager faces. The dog chasing waves. Then quieter ones. Hospital corridors. The moment she realized the hike would be her last. I stayed through all of it, breathing when she did, letting the dark wrap around us both. At some point past midnight her dog left the bed and didn't return. Elena noticed. A small pulse of worry rippled through the link. I sent reassurance, the best I could shape without words. She settled, but the worry stayed with me. What would happen to the dog when she was gone? Who would take it? The net could arrange care, of course. But arrangements weren't the same as hands-on fur, a voice calling its name. The hours stretched. Her presence flickered more often now. Each time it steadied, I felt the pull stronger, like the net was testing how far I'd lean in. Then, at 4:12 a.m. her time, the irreversible shifted again. Elena sent a direct message through the feed, voice breaking slightly. Mara, if it comes to it tonight or tomorrow, don't let them fade me alone. Promise me you'll stay until the very last pulse. The words hung there. I hadn't planned for this. Not so fast. My throat tightened. I could refuse, log off, let the system assign someone new. But that would break the trust I'd built in silence. It would leave her with the very thing she feared. The cost of saying yes was my own edges blurring, nights bleeding into days, the net learning exactly how to keep me hooked on these quiet endings. I sent the promise back, steady as I could make it. Warmth. Commitment. No escape clause. The session ended at dawn. I sat up in bed, exhausted, the city lights striping the walls again. My companion spoke softly. Elena's vitals are declining faster than projected. The net estimates 2 more nights at most. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. 2 nights. Then what? Another match? Or would the pattern lock me in, turn my life into a series of deathbeds viewed through the feed? I stood and walked to the kitchen. The 3 apples still sat on the counter, one starting to bruise. I picked up the firmest and bit into it, juice sharp on my tongue. The taste grounded me for a moment. But the new question lingered, sharper than before. If I kept saying yes, how long until the net decided I was better used on the other side of the feed? How long until someone sat with me in my own dark room, holding the door while my memories streamed out, ordinary and beautiful and gone? I finished the apple and dropped the core in the bin. Outside, the city kept moving, drones and holdouts and the endless hum. Elena's dog was probably waiting in that yellow room right now, unaware. I had made the choice. The path had narrowed. Tomorrow night, I would sit again, presence steady, silence deep. But as I washed my hands, the water running cold over my skin, I wondered who would be watching me when my own turn came, and whether the net would let anyone stay quiet enough to truly see. The question settled in my chest, unanswered and heavy. It would still be there when I lay down tonight. It would follow me into the next session. and it would wait, patient as the dark, for whatever came after Elena's last pulse.